So we're going to be cooking up a really impressive vegan meal.
Do you ever notice how certain foods don't just get popular, but they actually become ideologies? Like suddenly you're not just drinking oat milk, glorified pesticide residue, right? You're saving the planet. Or you're not just eating a plant-based burger. You're on the right side of history and civil rights and animal freedom. And listen, I get it. Humans love attaching identity to what they eat. And marketers love catering to the values they know that their consumer base will choose their product based on. But here is the problem. When food becomes like a belief system instead of just food and nutrition, you stop asking questions like, is this actually good for me? Does this work even? Is this even made of like real ingredients that I know of or could make myself? Is this sustainable financially, nutritionally, long term on either of those facets? And that's exactly how we get some of the biggest vegan food fails in history. So I'm going to break it down. Let's start it up. First, Oatly. This wasn't just oat milk, which had a good, 6 months, right? This was like a cultural, like barista approved, exclusive option. It had the eco-friendly branding, the anti-dairy messaging to, really get the controversy going. And it goes public. And then people think it's like the future of milk, beverages, whatever. Fast forward, stock is down 97%. Over $1 billion lost. And suddenly, it's just silence. So what actually killed Oatly? Well, it's really the same story every time. Hype versus reality. And people bought into the narrative, not the product of oat milk, because when you zoom out, oat milk is just low protein. It's not that filling. It's full of gums and like texture additives that just destroy your gut health flat out. And oat milk is often way more expensive if people actually look at the prices and compare. And it's just freaking oat residue, chemicals, and water, man. Right? So when normal consumers started prioritizing that function over feeling and morals, they went back to dairy, right? It's really that simple. It, lost its novelty. But it gets more interesting because when you really strip down oat milk and Oatly, what is it like actually? Let's break it down. So depending on the sourcing, right? Those oats that are being used can be heavily treated with pesticides like glyphosate before harvest. So you get that residue at such a higher rate. And think about this. If you're taking a crop that's often heavily sprayed with pesticides right before harvest, and then you're just blending it up, diluting it with water, and then messing with its texture at the cost of, bloating and gut microbiome destruction, and then selling it back as a premium product at like 3 to 4 times the price of actual milk, like artesian, like oat milk or some shit. That's where people start waking the fuck up, because the question becomes, am I actually buying nutrition with oat milk? Like, this seems so basic and like I could make it myself. Or, people are comfortable buying into the capitalistic like propaganda of marketing with oat milk, right? Then just layer in declining plant milk sales in general, right? The message fatigue around like the climate guilt, the, $9 million settlement tied to misleading claims with Oatly. And now you've got a brand that's really ahead of its own like reality, like passing up normal person adoption. The bloated marketing too for just Quaker pesticide runoff residue being sold to you at 4 times the price. Just bad. All right. Next vegan food fail. Beyond Meat, Beyond Burger, whatever it is, the fake meat patties, right, with seed oils. When this was hyped up prior to its like actual release, I think it was like around 2015, 2016. You got to understand the position they were trying to take in the market. Like, they were not trying to compete with real meat. They were trying to replace it.
Wow.
And for a moment, it looked like it might. Because I remember seeing the early like commercial behind the scenes videos on YouTube where they like make it bleed. And it seemed like, advanced tech. And I didn't know the nutrients back then. I just thought meat was protein, right? So in my mind, if it was close enough, it could be a good idea. But I was so nutritionally naive way back then. So anyways, people saw this and they were excited to try it out, right? And then people actually started eating it. Burger King, adopted a deal with them, I believe. So people were able to easily get access to this meatless burger option. So it sounds great. And then everything changed, right? Sales dropped, like they plummeted. The debt climbed. And still, they were not delivering consistent profits ever. And that's not just scaling pains for a business, right? You'd see, Beyond Burger patties in the bargain bin whenever you went to Target. And that's just massive, like, public rejection. And the health halo of it all just shattered, right? Because at first, it was marketed like better for you, cleaner, plant-based equals healthy, right? And then people started reading the freaking label, turning it around, realizing this is ultra processed slop. Like the long ingredient list of stuff that no one knew, like what the heck it was, the additives. And suddenly the same health conscious people went, wait a second. And this is the part that no one even talks about too. This was like the nail in the coffin, which is the protein issue. Because yes, you can list protein on a nutrition facts label, but that doesn't mean that your body is going to use it the same way, in this case, because it's from plants. And even that argument aside, there were actual legal challenges and scrutiny around the misleading claims about the protein and their labeling of it all. And that matters because if you're selling a meat replacement, protein is the entire game. So it's almost no wonder they lied about it and then got sued over it. And, if that all cracks, the whole product cracks if that lie is the big thing, right? And it gets worse. The massive debt, the write-downs, the investor lawsuits that came from everything else, the accounting issues, inventory problems. And it's no wonder, stock was down like 99% from its peak. And that's not like volatility, even like crypto. That's freaking collapse. And, at least the long-term investors like Bill Gates got out before it fully, just crashed, right?
In general, you always have to be careful.
So good on you, Bill. Let's talk about another one that got just a ton of hype. And I remember seeing it. It was weird. Just Egg. So this was supposed to be the like egg replacement, right? It's supposed to like scramble like eggs in the pan in the morning. It's supposed to cook like eggs. It's supposed to be better than eggs. Bruh. That was the pitch for it all. And, people realized first, the price. It was way more expensive than actual eggs. And second, of course, just the processing and, people getting into the idea of looking at the ingredients of it. Because like, if it's not eggs, what is it? So this is not just mung beans. This is a heavily engineered product designed to mimic something, from nature. And third, just the repeat problem. A lot of people try it at once it comes out. And very few will make it a staple that replaces eggs, right? Because eggs overall, from normal conditions are pretty cheap. They're very nutrient dense for the cost generally. And they're just so easy. Like they're hard to beat, really, even with great marketing, because, they're a staple in everything from baking to breakfast for people. And, I remember seeing Just Egg at my local health store back in Utah. And I was just so confused why they would want even egg in their name. It's just like a misleading thing, kind of. Like, I thought it was just egg whites. So, it was bad naming and bad branding, and something I don't think any person with normal vitamin B12 levels in their brain would think of needing. So it just was trying to fill a void that wasn't there. And then the last one I want to cover. This was like as the silent one. And I say that because vegans will silently hate on this, I know, internally. And it's vegan cheese. Daiya is the most popular brand in the vegan cheese market. So this market died really with no headlines, no big scandal. It's really just a quiet disappointment that, every time someone tries it because they think it's a good idea, because let's be honest, most of the vegan cheese, like Daiya and stuff, it doesn't melt right. It doesn't taste right. It doesn't feel right. And it barely looks right. And that's like so, underwhelming. It's really dollar store cheese where the first ingredient is usually corn based, and it's just pressed into shavings to look like shredded cheese, right? And then, of course, you look at the nutrition, and a lot of it is basically more of the bad crap, the seed oils, the starches, the cellulose, aka like sawdust, and just very little protein and just low nutritional value in general. So now you're trying to replace something that's generally somewhat nutrient dense and super satisfying, even like low skim mozzarella, high in protein at least. And, it's just vegetable filler, right? That's all it is. And there's no loyalty to Daiya, and other than the fact that, it's the only main vegan cheese in like the Whole Foods store line. So, it really just doesn't satisfy people. And that's the difference between like the trend and what's trendy and the actual food staple, because no one likes it. No one likes vegan cheese. They just like the idea of it and simulating cheese as a last ditch effort, right? So here's the part that you need to understand after all this. Every single one of these vegan food fails, they follow the same like life cycle pattern. The marketers know how to get the initial adoption from, the vocal minority that just look at it from face value. And it's just the simple marketer's playbook to use these people, these vegans. So step one, create that moral narrative. Vegans love that, especially because it's validating to their lifestyle and their identity. And then step two, these marketers do, is attach that identity to the product. Step three is bring in massive investors, right? Think about the people like Bill Gates, who knows nothing about freaking real nutrition or health, but still wants, the world to eat plants and bugs, right? So it fits his identity. Step four, scale it all way too freaking fast with, no real people, no real fans, right? Step five, reality hits. And when it hits freaking hard. Normal people just don't like the product whatsoever. Now, look, this isn't anti-vegan. This is just anti-bullshit, right? Because if something is truly better, then the marketing shouldn't have to go towards like guilting other people for choosing something else, or pressure, or infusing everything with identity politics. If it just works and people stick with it, that's what matters, That's why normal people really reject this woke nonsense that's being crammed down our throat like at every turn, right? So next time, if you see the next revolutionary food, just ask yourself this one question. Would people still buy this if there was like no story attached to it? Because if the answer is no, then you're not looking at the future of food or, products in general. You're looking at a trend that's just borrowing time and trying to squeeze all that money. You know, maybe another like Mr. Beast funded development like this next thing he's trying to work with. So we'll see how that ends up. I haven't looked into it that deep, but it seems like more of the same. So that's all for today's video. Thank you guys for sticking with me. If you have any questions, put it in the comments. I read all your guys' comments. I appreciate it all so much. Helps the algorithm. So make sure you comment, like, subscribe, and let me know what other topics you want to cover. What do you guys want to talk about? What are you interested in? And we'll hit it up. We'll make videos and let's build this community together. So thank you guys so much once again. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.